Is this thing on?
The next question is what do you believe about the people who voted opposite of you?
I believe that the people who voted opposite of me were looking for the simplest answer. I believe that maybe they didn't take the time and energy to actually look into and inform themselves and educate themselves on things being said and promised and just historically how things have been happening, and that the people who voted opposite of me were just really looking for a promise that was being made to them about being able to win in a society where necessarily maybe we don't feel like we're winning anymore with all the
Yeah.
things that are going on around us. And it's like they were looking and hoping for someone who is giving them these promises and saying, things are going to be better. I'm going to make this better for you. Right. And like when you're living in a world where everything seems so doomed and dark and despair, you're looking for that hope and looking for that, I'm going to say, disillusioned image that things are going to be better. And so that's how I feel those who voted opposite of me voted the way they did.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. The next question I have is what is the worst thing about society to you?
Well, for looking at society worldwide,
Mhm.
I would say that greed and productivity are what's worse in our society right now. So, as a human civilization, we are not meant or programmed to work, work, work all the time. And just
Sure.
like we have to produce so much. And we put our self worth and value in how much we're accomplishing, how much we're producing, how much social status we've climbed. Where as a human civilization, we're supposed to come together in small groups. If
Yeah.
you think in terms of Homo sapiens, come together, families, and survive and maybe set up systems to where we can actually thrive and flourish in other aspects like music and literature and poetry and art and innovation. So, us as a society right now are so focused on greed and productivity that we don't have those things.
Right.
I also, if we're looking at America specifically in terms of worse in our society, I think that the worst thing about America's society is that we're an individualistic society versus a collective society. Our society is focused more on like personal accomplishments, on control, on determining our self-worth based on what social class we're in, our
Yeah.
social status, and how many things do I have? And not in just like terms of like objects, but in terms of accomplishments.
Sure.
I feel like a lot, I mean, it's shifting. I see a shift, but a lot of like Americans, I still think have this mindset of by 25, I should probably be like at least with a boyfriend, so I could be married by 30.
Right.
And they like value their self worth on these and like, oh, I should have a house by the time maybe I'm 35. It don't need to happen in sequential order like that. And we don't need to determine our self worth on like our individual accomplishments, like in that way versus a collective society prioritize the group. They value loyalty, they value cohesion, they value the needs of the group versus them their one self. I with that thought, I always think about this episode on A Good Place.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
they come up with the philosophical question of you're on a train and there's five people you don't know and one person you really know, right? Do you save that one person or do you save those five other people? I mean, I feel like in terms of individualistic thought versus collective thought,
Yeah.
what is better for society?
Great. And in this society, we almost reject the masses, I would say. It's interesting because with my major in sociology, I think of society like this.
Mhm.
And you're right, we are an individualistic society. where our individual needs and the needs of our family and who we're taking care of are more important than others. I feel like part of our society really woke up to the need to be more collectivistic or to create our systems to be more equal and in some cases equitable when it comes to women's pay or when it comes to access to housing or banking loans for minorities. So many things like over the last 10 years we made progress on. And this year's election almost feels like a referendum on that, right? And I think that that's one of the ways that I was looking at this and why I was so much in despair and doom and gloom and everything is because I was like, oh man, people actually care about each other, and like our progress as treating people as equals doesn't really matter. But one of the things that I realized through having these podcasts is those are just initial feelings, but those are not the reality. The reality is that a lot of people voted because things are expensive out here. And I know you know what I
Well,
mean.
that's what I'm saying though, is individualistic.
Yeah,
They're caring more about this
sure.
than they are the needs of the people.
Right. And I mean, I guess where the paradigm of delusion there is that, oh, I don't have enough without seeing that as America, like our GDP and our economic power is still unsurpassed, right? We are still the greatest nation in the country, in the world, because of how much money we have here. And where people are missing the collective is they're saying, okay, the eggs are expensive for me, but they're not seeing that, hey, maybe the corporations who are selling the eggs need to bring the price down for all of us. You know what I mean? That's where they're not seeing their collective action can benefit not only them, but everybody around them.
Right.
Instead of saying, oh, I'm going to be just pit against you. I'm going to get these eggs at the cheapest price and not leave any for you because
Mhm.
yeah. So I hear what you're saying. I
Mhm.
totally agree with that. Okay, so what do you believe is one of the reasons that Trump and the largely Republic Congress was elected?
Like I said before, I feel like he made these promises of winning in a
Yeah,
world where you feel like you're not. I feel like he has, and I heard this from the UNC professor Tessie McMillan, I think it's,
okay,
and so it actually really stuck with me, and I really agree with this, and this is why I want to say it again. She said something about how Trump has a gift, and his gift is that he really knows what people want. And not what they say they want, not what they talk about at the dinner table, what they want, but
there you
what they
go.
really want deep inside. And what they really want deep inside is they want to feel like they're winning in this world where everything feels so bad and you feel like you're not winning. And he was willing to make these promises and tell this story, this really good story about how everything's going to be better. And I'm going to make this better for you. And we're the best country in the world. And we're going to be the best country in the world. And you don't have to worry anymore. And he taps into those deep anxieties of
Yeah,
people and their desires till they just want this delusion reality to happen so badly. And he was able to do that in a way that was simple. You could remember it and you could understand. And those were words directly from Tressie McMillan. And it really stuck with me. And I really agree with why this is probably why Republicans voted the way that they did and why we
right.
have a Republican Congress is for these reasons. And unfortunately, people don't make decisions based on informed choices. They mostly go off like their gut and their instinct and their feelings.
Yeah,
And when you have something that's really easy and simple to remember and you understand it, and like versus the other side, maybe it was more complex and maybe harder to remember, and there was actual plans involved, and people are like, ugh, plans, that requires reading. Ugh, gross. I'm not doing that.
so,
Just being able to just keep it as simple as possible. I feel like that's why people went with the way that they did.
yeah, and that's tough because as somebody in the education system, you know what that is, right? That's a function of our failing education system.
Well,
And
that all started with No Child Left Behind with the
sure,
Bush
absolutely.
administration. And just
Absolutely.
being able to just pass kids along without actually, these are the things you should learn in grade 4. Maybe we learn these things before we move on and just say, wash our hands. And then during COVID, it was worse because so
Yeah.
many kids, like, I mean, I can tell you from my district, for example, it's a Title I school. It's a Title I district.
Okay.
And
Can you tell us what that means?
so it means that most of our kids are socially, economically either on the
Disadvantage.
lower end,
Yep.
right, where they need more funding. The Title I schools tend to be more diverse in terms of population.
Sure.
And with that being said, with Title I schools and during COVID, I know for a fact a lot of our kids, like when things went remote, did not have internet access
Right.
to join Zoom and be a part of the class and learn the things that they were learning. This no trail left behind thing, I feel, got worse during the pandemic,
Right.
especially for the more affected groups, such as like my school, where
Yeah.
they didn't even have access to the internet to be able
Right.
to get on and learn anything. And they're like, and their parents are probably not there. They're working,
Sure.
right?
Absolutely.
So there's
Absolutely.
no one there to support them in their education and learning. And if you have a mom, a single mom who's working 2 jobs just to support her 2 children, like,
Right.
she probably doesn't then have the energy to come home and then read a book to you. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
and then it just created this okay premise of, "Oh, your child's in 7th grade, but reads at a 3rd grade reading level. That's fine. Let's just keep moving them along." It's really detrimental, and
Well, it's
especially, I feel like it's really, I mean, honestly, it's really deep rooted in the systematic racism that we have in our country.
sure.
Because if you look at terms of social economic status, people of color tend to be on the lower end.
Yeah.
And it's deep rooted, and it's so deep rooted that people are unaware of it. And I've seen it firsthand of
Yeah.
how it's like deep rooted in these groups in these areas where they're just saying, you can't read, it's fine. Just keep moving on. It's
Sure. And that approach to education doesn't take responsibility for the adult that that becomes, right? Because it's, oh, we need to make sure our numbers are up. We need to make sure we cycle these kids in and out because we got a new batch coming in next year, push them along without taking responsibility for the fact that you've just put an adult, a potential adult out there that has maybe no social skills or doesn't know how to balance a checkbook, doesn't understand credit, doesn't understand how to approach issues and find solutions methodically. And the question then there is this system, I mean, it's contributing to the individual because it's like individually, you're supposed to do everything you need to be successful and not be homeless and on the street, while at the same time, not seeing how much that damages the collective, right? If you are pumping out a generation of kids that don't have critical thinking skills and they can't cook for themselves or take care of themselves or get a job right, then you have a bunch of folks who are just trying to get whatever job they can. They are eating
Well, you need workers,
unhealthy.
right?
What's that?
I said you need workers.
Yeah,
And that's, I mean, do you
that's
know
the deep.
why
Yep,
public education was created?
yep. To create factory workers for the Ford company.
Exactly. That premise is still relevant to this day. They
Right.
want to keep the working and poor class as workers. And if you're more well informed and you can have the knowledge and the contextual skills, oh, maybe I'm not going to keep putting those same people in power and keep producing workers. And it's, I can't remember his exact name, but the guy who created public education, there's like a quote from him that they were like asking, okay, what should we teach them in this like school? And he's been, I can't remember his name, but he said, just teach them everything about nothing. It doesn't matter. So if you think about that today, and it still has relevance, and if you still just teach them everything about nothing, and you're
Right.
producing worker bees for your society so that they can keep producing and working and you keep reaping all the benefits.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
It's a no wonder. I mean, it's no wonder people don't want to, read their voter pamphlet to, know who they're voting for, and who, the people who just want to take a soundbite on a TikTok reel or something as truth, right?
Mhm.
Because in some ways, they don't know any better. Which is interesting because one of the narratives coming out of the election is that Democrats' message didn't resonate with with the working class or even lower income folks, and that their messaging and their targeting was elitist to the people who might be all the people that we're talking about who didn't get the education, got pushed through or whatever. They look at us as, okay, y'all are just using all these big words. Y'all just think you're better than everybody. And it's like, I mean, no, but and
Yeah.
it's tough. It's really tough
Mhm.
because we just have to figure out how to incorporate everybody and really touch on the issues instead of dividing. You know what I mean? Okay. Next question is do you feel like you did enough to affect the election in the way you wanted to see it go?
No, I mean, as a person and as a teacher, I never feel like I'm doing enough.
Same here.
I always feel like you can do more, right?
Okay.
There's always something you could do better at. There's always something I could have done differently. There's always something I could have done more. I could have done more things, like be more vocal and
Sure.
spoke up about like my values and what I believe in. I could have been more inspirational and encouraging to those around me about how just important it is to vote and learn what's going on around you. I could have found some like articles from trustworthy sources and about big issues and posted them on social media so
Sure.
maybe it would reach more people and oh, what's this? And create interest. I could have been more available to, especially as like a government history teacher, to those around me who are curious or unaware even of like how our government works.
Yeah.
And I mean, to just look at that basic root of just even how does our government work and how have things like Supreme Court cases given and taken power away from Congress and how that affects future decisions being made and how
Right.
the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence were set up and how that affects us to this day, something that
Yeah.
was 300 years ago. That because that's what we take. That's like our guideline and our basically our government Bible of like, how do we run this
Sure.
country, right? And so
Right.
much of it is up for interpretation, but to actually figure out the fundamentals and how these things work, I probably could have been more available to those who just want to learn about those things. And I feel like being more aware of those fundamentals, like, could help make people learn more skills.
Sure. I respect your perspective because I'm of the same thinking. I can always do more.
Mhm.
But, in the same token, we also have to take care of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I haven't said this yet on the podcast, but I'm saying it for you, one, because you're a school teacher and that is a very taxing job. Like, we do have to balance resistance and political action and activism with our own health, emotional, mental, physical health. And
Right.
we've evolved enough as a society to know that these things are important. We have language about trauma and about disparate impacts and all this stuff now. Like a part of what we really got to do going forward is make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so that we're energized and we are bringing ourselves as best we can to these additional aspirational things, community driven things and social benefit type things. But so as a teacher, please take what time you need because
I
these
do.
are
Mental health is
people.
very important to me. Don't
Okay.
worry.
Okay,
And
good,
I
good.
really advocate that to my students too, about how
Excellent.
important mental health is.
It is extremely important. So
Mhm.
that's great. That's great. Okay. So the last question I have for you is what do you want to say to the version of yourself 4 years in the future?
What I want to say to me 4 years from now is that I promise to be better, work at doing all those things that I just said that I could have done better at, to always keep trying and pushing through, to be hopeful that I, as an educator,
Mhm.
can maybe teach my kids to learn how to learn and take those skills and be hopeful that they will take those skills and be better at making choices, more well-informed choices about being a well globalized citizen of not
Yeah.
just this country, but globally.
Yeah.
That the only way to move forward is to work together. So never stop being collaborative. Never stop being open-minded and listening to people, genuinely listening to people, to not worry so much that things are going to work out eventually in the way that they're supposed to, but never stop trying and never stop pushing through and never stop advocating for those who can't speak up and advocate for themselves. And then lastly, that I, we can fight longer than them.
That's right. Say that.
Mhm.
That's
We
great.
yeah, never we can fight longer.
Yeah. And Lord knows we have to. So I feel like you and I are both doing what we want our future self to know. We are spreading this information. I am doing this podcast. You are saying we need to learn, which is extremely important. So we're on that road. I, I have faith in us. I always have and always will.
I mean, you gotta have hope. You gotta have.
I have one extra question because of
Okay.
your unique school, right?
Okay. Mhm.
And the students that you have, and two, in education, because one of the bits of rhetoric coming from the Republican side was the left wants to indoctrinate our kids to get gender
You see
changes.
my eye roll.
You know what I'm saying? And people need to understand why that is so absurd. And I'm curious what your perspective is. Like, what do you want to tell these people? I mean, you don't really need to direct it to them, but for the people who have that as an argument, what would you say to that?
Okay. I would say, no, those kids are indoctrinating me, first off. No, but also they influence me
Yeah.
and I mean, I have a Montessori background. I did Montessori
Sure.
for a time, which Maria Montessori's main philosophy is based off observations of
Right.
what the child is interested in and
Uh,
to navigate their learning based off their interest.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I've taken that philosophy with me through my career as an educator, and I really observe and listen to what these kids want to know and want to learn. For example, the inquiry day after the election, and I just gave them a platform to be heard and to be listened to and what questions were on your mind, right? Because especially as like teenagers, people are like, they don't know anything, right? Or they don't necessarily are gonna go home and be like, Mom, Dad, this is how I'm feeling about all this. Or maybe necessarily no other teacher, as far as I know, was giving a platform for these kids to even ask these questions. They're like, you're the only teacher that's done this for us. I'm going in it with just observing and taking what they want to learn and then
Yeah.
applying that to the process. It's
Sure.
not me taking my own thoughts and beliefs and like what I want to learn and then incorporating that. I'm taking what they want to learn and guiding our lessons through that lens. I also go through it as non-biased as possible because I don't want to make the choices for them. I want our kids to grow up to learn how to make choices for themselves and to advocate for themselves and to obtain knowledge for themselves.
The next question I have is they're like, oh, they want to indoctrinate our kids to be trans, and they want to provide gender affirming care in schools so kids
Uh,
can go to school and then come home a different gender. And and as somebody who identifies as gay, who's in social justice and all that stuff, the reason why those issues have elevated is because one, we see these people, and two, society outcasts them. And for our society, and this is a like a broader spiritual belief that I have, uh, you can't limit the manifestations of the infinite. Like to say life has to fit in this category of person in society is to dismiss the limitlessness that life can truly take on, right? And
mhm.
so if our society doesn't have a place for these people, yet these people still exist, are we as a society okay killing these people? Or are we as a society okay letting these people starve because we want to shun them from society because of who they innately are? Like any good person should say no to that, right? And we're not trying to indoctrinate them. We're trying to allow the system to not harm these people so that they're not harmed adults. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, from personal experience, anybody on the LGBTQ plus community or, like, transgender students that I have known who they are and known what sexual interests they have or who they are deep inside from a
Sure.
very, very young age,
Right.
right? That's not you can't tell a four like, I mean, like, you could, but, like, these people know from deep inside, like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I don't feel comfortable in my body." Like, from listening if you actually listen to these, like, people and students and young children tell their stories, and you actually treat them as actual people
Say
and
that.
not this, like, image of children should be seen and not heard, right?
Yeah.
You can actually understand and take the time to understand that they have known who they are for a long time. That's
Right.
not me influencing them or indoctrinating them to believe this, right? They've known
Right.
this for a long, long time, and it's deep rooted about who they are. We just need to learn as a society to accept these people for who they are.
Say that. That and what's the harm that that can do? I mean, some people can say, "Oh, I don't believe that having my kids be exposed to these people is going to indoctrinate them to be one of those people." And it's just because you take your kid to the fire department to check out all the fire gear and to touch a truck and understand what firefighters do doesn't mean that's going to make them want to be one. It might,
Right.
but now
Right.
they know what a firefighter does. And that's one gap in their brain or their understanding of how the world works that they don't have anymore because they've been exposed to it. You know what I mean?
I mean, to me, as long as it doesn't harm others or
Right.
because you like girls, because I'm a girl and I like girls, that's whatever. And as long as that's harmful or hurting anybody in any way, shape, or that doesn't
Yeah.
hurt anybody if I like girls, right?
Sure.
It doesn't affect your life. It doesn't change how your life's going to turn out. Therefore, just mind your own business.
That's right. That's right. We should be afforded that in America because
You
that's the
should.
foundations of our constitution, right? Every person has their freedom to life, liberty, and their pursuit of happiness. Yeah. Lots to unpack there. Taylor, I absolutely appreciate you. And again, thank you for your work as a teacher and a union shop steward, co-union family. We got a lot of work to do. And I'm glad you're in the places doing the work you're doing because your kids rely on you to help them where their parents might not have the ability or even the time to help them. And that's okay.
You can
But
only work with the tools that you have.
that's right. That's right. And if you give them the tools that will teach them how to find more tools, then you're giving them the world. And so doing that work, sis, keep doing that work.
I'll try my best. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. And so in conclusion, we are all different, but we are all also the same. What matters is we recognize that and move forward to make a better world for all of us.